Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 881. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
That's right, a.k.a. Negative Camber.
He's from Missouri, where they're all known to be killers of innocent men, women, and children.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's where I'm from. Oh boy, tonight we're going to talk about Formula One news, of course, and there's news to talk about in Formula One, of all things. Before doing that, though, I have to introduce my co-host. You know who it is, nestled in our nation's capital on the right coast of the United States of these Americas, with her cats, with the Burj Khalifa of cat trees behind her, the lovely, the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Yeah. So I thought we'd talk about Formula One news this week. Before doing that, though, I have to give a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters who are joining us now live during this podcast. No, Ian, not a new soundboard. Same one. And I'm answering their questions. We got Melton and Ian in there and lots of folks in there. All of our Patreon supporters that are there live in our audience during the recording that can chat with us in real time. We could not do this podcast without you. So welcome aboard. It's great to have you guys here. It means the world to us, and we love to have your feedback. And if we don't get to everyone, we're trying to manage a show too, and apologies up front. But it's great to have you live, interacting with each other, interacting with us. And you, too, can do that by as little as $1 a month. You can go to our website, theparcfermé.com. Just click on Support Us. If you're a Patreon supporter, you can get the link, and you can join us live for these recordings of the podcast. We'd love to have you. So thank you so much, folks, for being part of that. Okay, Grace.
Well, and it's a good thing because I already know that Flip is committed to playing Helldivers tonight. So otherwise, I'm sure I'm telling you, one of these days he's just going to show up and be in there chatting with the people, talking about who knows, whatever, just stirring the pot. I mean, that's what he likes to do, as you know. So
is he a pot stirrer?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, always muddy in the water, always pulling at the threads. Is Flip?
I mean, we get along for a reason, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. That all makes sense. So we got some news to talk about. I got some Formula One news and some not Formula One news, but kind of Formula One news. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about Adrian Newey, Red Bull. Going to be talking about the 2026 regulations. Going to be talking about Williams and that third chassis. Hello, third chassis.
Check the Excel spreadsheet.
Somebody get Patty Lowe on a plane and fly it down here, would you? Hi,
Row
Claire.
2F, column 4,
Right.
spare chassis.
Yeah, right. So we're going to talk about that and then some other fun, big news from this week. So we'll talk about all of that. All right, let's dive into what I wanted to talk about tonight. So the first thing I want to talk about is Adrian Newey and the rumored. This is carried by Autosport, so I have no reason to disbelieve this. But according to Autosport, Aston Martin's Lawrence Stroll made a very lucrative offer to Adrian Newey at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And while previous lures have been dangled in front of Adrian before with no effect, the recent issues at Red Bull have some wondering if he might not be interested this time. I mean, after all, he did have a hand in designing the Aston Martin Valkyrie, right?
Right.
So some are thinking, this whole thing at Red Bull, this power struggle, I don't know what's going on with Horner. Maybe Adrian doesn't want the drama. Maybe he wants a new challenge in life. Maybe Aston Martin makes sense. Now, a couple things working against that. Adrian last year signed a multi-year deal with Red Bull. So I can't see things changing unless he's also unhappy at the team and the situation, and there happens to be an escape clause of some sort. Maybe he would get out of that. The fact is, Adrian has been wanting to work on other projects in the past, other cars and boats and things like that. I'm not sure if he still does at this point. I don't know, what I do know is if he did go over to Aston, it would absolutely 100% have to be his way or the highway, given his pedigree. I mean, he wouldn't stand for any of Lawrence Stroll's micromanaging or direction or adjusting his junk in front of him. That would not go down at all with Adrian. Adrian would be the tail wagging the dog there because he wouldn't put up with any of that, and he can't be boxed or fenced in at this point.
I mean, somehow, I also think the 2 giant bags of money that Lawrence Stroll would be carrying towards him would also help. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's definitely a part of this, and I'm not sure that Red Bull, for all the money they have, maybe their 2 big bags of money aren't quite as big as what Lawrence Stroll can offer him. And, Larry seems to be able to make it work for Alonso. So I think he has some experience with the, Alonso Claus kind of personality.
Yeah.
So I think that he'd be quite okay with, here's 2 money bags, here's 2 bags full of money, and I'll see you in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Here's some wood, whittle some soapbox derby cars, and let me know what you got. So
Yeah, it's a good point, Grace. I mean, he may, I made it sound like Lawrence is going to be looking over his shoulder. I mean, chances are he's going to give him 2 bags of money and say, okay, now go win me championships.
right, I mean,
Do whatever
right.
it is you do, but go win championships, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially, he comes in with that pedigree. I don't think that he needs to watch him like that, right? Bring your people, bring what you want. Yeah, just win. So I think I love this idea, of course. I'm Team Alonso. This would help Team Alonso. So I think this is a great idea. Plus, I think a lot of that, I want to do this, I want to do that, was always between him and Ron Dennis. I don't know that he says as much of that once he went to Red Bull, but between him and Ron Dennis when he's at McLaren, it was always like, oh, this is the year. I'm going to go work on boats, Ron.
Yeah.
So clearly those 2 bags of money weren't big enough. There was a lot of harassment there. So
Right. Well, it's like Milton pointed out in our chat, it would definitely help with that transition to Honda in 2026. It's a good point because Adrian knows how that Honda lump attaches to a chassis. He's been doing that a lot with Honda, with Red Bull. Yeah.
Bondo and Flex Seal.
Yep, a lot of Flex Seal and some helicopter tape and Gorilla Glue.
Solves all the problems.
You just kind of rub that in, smear it in there a little bit. Adrian is he's just an enigma. I always joke that he, can physically see air. And, everybody has CFD and he's like, give me a piece of paper and a protractor and I'm on it, and he's that kind of guy. But he just adds winning success to wherever he's at. He just improves whatever. He's like the Gene Hackman of aerodynamic, engineers and teams,
Right.
He just improves everything he's in,
That's right.
And the big question is this the Gene Hackman? Is this Adrian Newey starring, or is this the Poseidon Adventure starring Adrian Newey at Red Bull right now?
Right.
Or is it Hoosiers, right? I don't know.
Well, I think if he came over to the green team, it would be more like the Hoosiers. So
it would be more like the Hoosiers.
I think that's the way to go. Just my unsolicited opinion here, based on lots of facts. I think that's the way to go.
Alonso, the troubled youth with alcoholic father Jimmy, out there shooting baskets in the rain. That's Alonso for you. That's terrible.
And maybe he can convince Larry that Lawrence needs to go, or that Lance needs to go. Oof.
Maybe if Lawrence could get Adrian, that's a big boost for the team. Now, some suggest that Max might want to continue working with Adrian, and that might be an option for Lawrence as well. We all think, Mercedes is the talk is that Mercedes is really trying to woo him and woo Max over, and hey, we'll take helmet too, that sort of thing. And Toto has kind of alluded to, it'd be great, and we're very interested in Max, blah 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 blah. But Lawrence is over on the backside saying, hey, I'm getting Honda. I'm after Adrian Newey. Maybe I can bring Max along with that. My hunch is that Max, I could be wrong, but I think Max is more tied to Helmut Marko than he is Adrian, would be my hunch. And so I don't know if Lawrence would be willing to do Adrian, Max, and Helmut. I don't know.
Sure.
Hey, why not? If it wins titles, it's just money. Lawrence has got that.
That's right. Just bring them all over. Sure. What else can I do for you? All right,
Yeah.
you want Adrian Newey? Sure. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could you see Helmut Marko, though, and Larry Stroll?
No, that would be a weird dynamic.
That seems not great.
Yeah, I could see Toto and Helmet, but Lawrence and Helmet would be a weird combination.
Oh, that's not good. That's not.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, Helmet would be like,
Goodbye, good luck, and good riddance.
that's how he would be.
I think Lawrence would do more than just adjust his junk. So
He might adjust Helmet's junk.
exactly. I
Yeah,
think
and that's not good for anybody.
no. Yeah.
So I
but-
don't know.
You know,
Wouldn't
you
it be
were talking-
weird to see Max go over? I mean, I think Lawrence would say, well, I have Alonso. Do I get rid of Alonso for Max? Because I could see him saying, well, I'm not going to dump my own son for
Dump
Max.
your own son.
It's like, dump your own son. Get Alonso and Max. That would
Plus
be...
your own son is on an ongoing contract.
Yeah, right.
You can get rid of him tomorrow. That's like
Yeah.
the dream, right? Like, just get rid of him. I also would like to believe that Adrian Newey has written into his contract, because you were saying like he has a multi-year contract, like unless it's like the jerk face clause, unless Christian's a jerk face, and then I'm out of here, right?
Right.
So maybe.
Yeah, it's a clause. It says here, section 8.1, if Christian Horner gets caught sexting, I'm out of here.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have a jerk face clause in my contract with Paul. So,
You do.
He's just one jerk face moment away and I'm out of here.
Yeah, and that could happen at any moment.
That's right.
Paul.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
He's like a feral dog. You just don't know how he's going to react.
That's hilarious.
So anyway, so Adrian Newey
Right.
at play. I don't know. Max Helmet at play. Max is kind of holding up the whole silly season gravy train over there, whether he stays or goes. A lot of conversation. So this led me to thinking about, and bear with me because, Steven said Helmet can rewrite Newey's contract like he did Max's. That's a great point, Steven. I love it. So that's just we'll just rewrite that with escape clause, and Horner and Red Bull doesn't even know I rewrote it. There you go. Newey's able to walk anytime he wants. But it got me to thinking a little bit ultimately about just Red Bull in general and what's going on over there. I don't excuse me, I don't have any more information about, the accuser, the accused, or what's going on over there from that standpoint. But one thing I want to point out, you veterans listen, you'll know this. So take a walk back through history with me for a little bit. If you're newer to Formula One, this is intended not to patronize you, but hopefully help. So in the Formula One is a series of domination. It just has been. Whether it was Williams or Brabham or Lotus or Ferrari or whatever it is, regulations are set. Teams become dominant with those set of regulations because they got it right, and they tend to win multiple years, and then eventually all dynasties don't last forever. Eventually, Mercedes had an amazing run for 8 years, folks. 8 years. That's the longest dominant period I can ever remember in my lifetime. Red Bull had 4 years before that. Renault had 2-year domination before that. Ferrari had 4 years domination, arguably 5. McLaren, 2 or 3 years domination before that. And now Red Bull has had 3 years on the trot so far, right?
I like the McLaren had 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Kimi's wing falling off shouldn't have happened. He should have won. So that's the point, is that this is the normal. So if you were thinking, this is a sport of any given Sunday, any team can win, that's just not going to happen. The domination is normal. But what I did want to bring up is there are times, however, or normally, a major regulation change is what upsets the running order. Just as we saw a couple of years ago that knocked Mercedes off the top step, and now Red Bull is dominating. The next regulation change, 2026, it will be a challenge for Red Bull to stay on top of that. That's an opportunity for someone else like Ferrari to knock them off the top step or whoever. All right. That's very common in Formula One. There are times, however, when other things impact a dynasty, such as serious poaching from other teams, which Red Bull and Mercedes have had a lot of over the last 3 or 4 years, right? So you can have a very successful team like Toto did, and then Red Bull came in and started poaching key personnel, key engineers, key engine people, right?
Right.
And did so. Grace, you like to talk about Flavio Briatore's famous quote. Right?
That's right. Why would after Spygate, he's like, right? Why would you take somebody's car manual and photocopy it so everybody knows? Why don't you just hire away their engineers like the rest of us do, right?
Right. So you just hire that intellectual property and that knowledge base, and that comes with them. And so this can happen. Poaching is one of them. There's also the issue, and I think Grace and I talked about it a little bit just for recording, but there's also this issue of success breeding things such as friction within a team, hubris within a team, overconfidence, lethargy, or even political turmoil within a team. When you have this kind of success on success, it can just creep in. There's things that just happen when you have rude success like this, like Mercedes did, or like Red Bull.
Right.
I think Red Bull's issues started ultimately, for me, it's my opinion, it all really started when Dietrich Mateschitz passed away.
I agree. I think he was really the Bondo that held that team together. I agree.
Right. And the concept now of control over the Red Bull empire, I'm not saying it's complete chaos, but the concept of control of that empire has now come sharply into focus. Right?
And not only that, it was unexpected.
Yes.
There's no preparation, right? I think that's a different thing too.
It's a good point, Grace. Yeah, it's a good point.
Nobody was expecting it.
Yeah. It's not always as simple as who has controlling interest in the company, but how the company is managed on a day-to-day basis, and who has the granular knowledge of how not to only maintain current performance, but also improve it. There's a lot of moving parts here. You could say, well, I own 51% of it. Yeah, but do you really know how to run it like Didi did, or the current CEO and the people that do the day-to-day business, right? The racing arm of Red Bull is a complex entity with Horner at the top, but Helmut is in that mix, as well as the Austrian leadership at HQ, and then the Thai majority owner at 51%, right? So when you look at all of this, you've got the Red Bull empire itself, its CEO, the successor of Dietrich Mateschitz, I think it's his son. You've got them in a minority position to the Thai owner, who is 51% controlling interest of that team. And some say that there's this dynamic where the controlling interest is fan of Horner, while the Austrian interest is not, right?
Right.
That's a rumor. I've just read that. That was a rumor. But you can see what I'm talking about, where these politics and how this company goes forward, not only just Red Bull's empire as a energy drink, but how the racing, how much deference do they give the racing team? If you wanted Christian Horner out, how would you get him out, right? Some stranger things have happened in the corporate world. So how much deference do you give Red Bull Racing? Who wants Horner out? Then you have Jos Verstappen and Max to add to this concoction, making the whole thing touchy.
Which is worse. I mean, smartly so is what I was going to say. I don't know. Rightly so, smartly so. I mean, Jos Verstappen has placed Max in an appropriate position, right? Like, they've never been in a place where they owe anybody anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, Max came up, he was never a Red Bull Junior racer. He never had to go through the lower series like the other drivers do, right? He was always a free agent, and he remains a free agent in that sense. And so Jos has always positioned Max in a place to do what is best for Max and not have to worry about these other things that us mere mortal Formula One drivers have to worry about, right? So
yeah, he didn't. I mean, he was in Red Bull's junior program, but not like what you're talking about.
Right,
The
that's what I mean.
long
Like
grind,
yes.
the you look at the way that Kvyat and Yuki came up, and De Vries, and these people that have tried to come in. You know, Max was so talented that he short-circuited that entire junior program thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like when you go to college on your company's dime, you usually owe your company some amount of time afterwards, right? Yeah, Max did none of that. He's like, I'm going to go to college and you're going to pay me for it, and I'm not going to give you any time back, right? Like, I mean, they were able to work this deal, and Yas's inner knowledge of how the sport works and who he knows. And I just think that's part of this that doesn't often get talked about, is how Max is able to leverage himself and how his dad leveraged himself into this team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to be commended. You know, and it's really not just the racing. It's ultimately about money and power, folks.
For sure.
Who has it? Who needs to do what to get it? And who needs to be removed in order to do so? Right? Max, Jos, and Helmut are going to be in it for themselves, as you would totally expect.
Right.
And if throwing Horner under the bus advances their cause, then Horner's under the bus.
That's right.
Horner has built this team, and if Max and Helmut want to pack Joss up and go somewhere else, then from his point of view, okay, well, good riddance. He was here long before Max, and he can build the team again. Now, that's much easier said than done when you have an extraordinary talent like Max, but he has to look out for himself. Right?
He does.
And his future amidst all of these allegations that some people are saying are very legit allegations. Others suggest that it's a coordinated attack to remove him. But with no details, I have no way of knowing any of that definitively.
I mean, it also doesn't help. I mean, I assume this is how everybody feels in the corporate world, but everything's about optics, right?
Yep.
So I think that when you hear that story, that I don't see a lot of people going, oh, that doesn't seem consistent with what I know about that character of Christian Horner, right? I think that's the danger of being that way. Whereas if it was, I don't know, somebody else, Fred Vasseur, you go, really, Fred? That doesn't seem like Fred, right? And I get it. That's all narrative and that's all speculative. But narrative matters. And
it does
I think
matter.
Christian Horner really, like those optics, like, was anybody surprised it was Christian Horner? No, I think most people were like, well, this isn't fair. We don't actually know anything, which is a fair point.
Yeah, it is. But you're right. Those optics and the narrative is, well, you know, Christian and his wife stand strong together during this difficult time. And that's kind of I was sexting, but, you know, my wife and I are sticking together on this. And, you know.
People have all kinds of relationships. I don't know what that has to do with anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was such a weird, I mean, I get it. I understand why they like Trump Jerry around everywhere, as if that somehow made this better. Like, we know they're married. She comes to the races. We all know who the Spice Girls are, right? It's not like, oh, so you're holding his hand more. You're right. This definitely made it better, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right. Well, that certainly means he's innocent.
You're right. I totally forgot about the whole thing. Jerry's here.
Yeah, right. Then you've got there's Austria, and the struggle for control with a 51% Thai owner who may not see it the same way as the CEO and minority owners do. These situations can become untenable if you consider Crashgate and Renault, Spygate and McLaren. These are non-regulation changes that ended dynasties, and one wonders if this isn't the beginning of the end of a Red Bull dynasty based on their own intra-team issues.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and this isn't even a regulation change that's caught them off guard that they didn't get right. They've got Adrian Newey. They've won 2 out of the 3 races this year. Max looks completely on form, and yet they have all this going on. And so is this, an issue? The one thing I find kind of odd is that before DTS, no one was really teeth gnashing about Mercedes and Lewis dominating for 8 years. But when Red Bull starts to dominate, a lot of people get restless, or I'm turning off TV. It's boring or whatever. So there's no complaints for 8 years. Now Red Bull is winning everything. now when they've got all of this new influx of fans, and now all of a sudden, oh, well, we've got Horner is accused of this, and Max is thinking of moving, and the wheels start to get loose on Red Bull and threaten to come off, after 3 years of dominance, and everybody's saying this is just unbearable. 3 years of dominance. Meanwhile, Mercedes just had 8, and it makes you wonder. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see this on Drive to Survive, which I read today that they will have this issue in Drive to Survive.
I still haven't finished Drive to Survive. I'm so bored by it now.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever. Anyway. I think the thing is I think people did gnash their teeth over Mercedes the same way they gnashed their teeth over Ferrari, right? Like everybody
Do
was
you
always
think people were really upset about Mercedes domination that much?
Yes.
I don't think they were like they were with Ferrari and Schumacher, or now with Max and Red Bull. I think
maybe they just don't like red teams. I think people did gnash their teeth over Mercedes. Yeah.
All right. Well, for those listening, let us know.
I mean, I think it's true in anything, right? Whether it's football, whether it's soccer, whatever. When one team is dominant, it's nobody wants to watch it, right? And so I think the thing that social media and DTS now offers a megaphone for that kind of an opinion, right? That opinion always existed, just like every other opinion existed, right? Like I always continually say, people like to say, oh, America's so divided. No, it's always been divided. It's just now there's a megaphone, you all know it. Yeah. Right? I don't see anything inconsistent with what people say now that they didn't say before. It's just you maybe didn't know about it, right? So I think that you have a megaphone and a feedback loop, so that makes these sound stronger. But I think that people said all these same things about anytime there's a dominance, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Michael Schumacher or, I don't know, some soccer team that I don't know about. And I think the thing is...
Man City, Arsenal.
There you go. Yeah. Sure. I think the thing is that what you want, and I'm segueing into MotoGP ahead of when you wanted to segue into MotoGP, but I think what you really want is MotoGP. Like, is anybody surprised if Pecco Bagnaia wins, if Ducati wins another world championship? No. But there's always a chance for a Rin spoiler. There's always a chance for Marc Marquez to get in there. There's always a chance for, Pedro Acosta to win a race, right? So I think that's what you want. You still have Ducati dominance, and Pecco probably will win another championship. That's not surprising.
So tired of seeing Ducati.
Well, they have like 8 of the, of the team. So what are you going to have? But I think that's the thing. And that's always been true with MotoGP. Whenever, even when Rossi was really dominant, you always had these like one-offs. And we used to have more of that in Formula One. Like you'd have a one-off in Australia or something like that where you're just like, where the hell did that come from? And so we've lost some of that sort of like random one-offness in Formula One.
Vettel win in Monza.
Right. And so that's what you want. And so I think that you don't have to break up the dynasties. I don't think that's ever going to be part of what Formula One is. Mm-hmm. And I think that would ruin Formula One to get rid of that. There are plenty of other motor racing. If you want somebody different every week, you can go watch that. But you want at least to be able to think somebody other than Max Verstappen is going to win at some place other than Australia and Singapore, right? Yeah. Like you don't want it to just be these like random weak spots that Red Bull has, and that's the only time Carlos Sainz is going to win.
Right. No, it's true. Yeah, so watch this space. I wanted to point out that it isn't always regulation changes that can upset a dynasty. It can be internal issues as well.
But this is a pretty big internal issue. I mean, I guess the thing with Crashgate and Spygate, I mean, maybe that's true here too. We don't quite know, but like, I may not agree that Crashgate or Spygate are right, but I can understand why they did it, right? I can understand the temptation to do what happened because it got you a competitive advantage. And like with Crashgate, had they just kept Junior happy and his dad happy, we still wouldn't know about Crashgate, right?
Right. If they would have re-signed him for what he wanted,
and so like that could have continued and we would have never known. And Felipe Massa wouldn't have a lawsuit and would have, right? So I think that there's something to that when it's like a competitive advantage. This to me just seems like internal power hubris, infighting. It seems like such a weird way for a dynasty to end.
It's a great point, Grace, because in all of those cases, Spygate, Crashgate, in all of those cases, there were multiple people within a team trying to gain a competitive advantage. In this case, it's just one dude's, personal life shooting himself in the foot, putting that above everything else, if true, right? If it's true and you're sending inappropriate messages to somebody under you, and that puts everything at risk. It's a momentary lapse of judgment, that's for sure.
That corporate America has been dealing with, right? Like, it's not as if this is the first time that, if it was true, right? Like, these kind of things have been swept under the rug for a long time. Doesn't make me happy. I'm not saying that's right, but it's not as if this is the first time that some person with a lot of power has made, sexting, I guess we'll go with that, sexting towards somebody in a lower position than them. That's the other thing I don't get too. I mean, it's not as if this is like, a one-off thing. This unfortunately happens all the time. It gets swept under the rug. Women for sure know, like, HR is not your friend. And what you learn is just don't report it. So the fact that this still has legs is also the thing to me that is surprising, because people have figured out how to wipe this under the rug all the time. Why are we still talking about this?
Well, and I certainly don't think it's over yet. I think the accuser is going to go, ballistic on this, and bring it out, drag it out into a different forum, to arbitration or something, to get to the bottom of it, because they don't agree with it. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. It could be the beginning of the end. I don't know. We'll find out.
I don't know either. It seems like a weird way to go.
It's a very weird way to go for a personal thing. And the only reason I'm saying that is it was one person's actions, that had nothing to do with racing, which is so strange. That's if true. I don't know. There's no detail, and I don't know the details, right? So we'll have to give time benefit of the doubt. Let's talk about 2026. So 2026, new engines, getting rid of the MGUH, or as Paul might say, MGUH. You know how he likes to do the H with his H's. No, he doesn't. And he doesn't say controversy either.
Or Monaco.
Or he doesn't say Monaco.
Again, Will Ferrell, George W. Bush. Who knows who said it? But, we like to attribute these things to Paul anyway.
I know. Paul gives me crap when I ascribe some of the dandy English
words
to him. Yeah, because he's so not who he is.
He's like, I've never said that. It is never, that word has never left my mouth that way.
Yeah. Yep, I know. I've been watching a lot of Premier League lately. I'm trying to figure out what team I should pick. Everybody says I got to pick a team, and Paul's a big West Ham guy, and I do like West Ham. But so far, my first pick a few years ago was Arsenal, and then I was thinking, well, maybe Bournemouth. I kind of like the Cherries. That's because they're underdogs, a little smaller stadium and all that. And then I thought Aston Villa, that might be kind of fun. So anyway, but I don't know anything about the fan bases of them because I'm a Yankee, so I don't know anything about them, right? And everybody's like, oh, you can't pick the Spurs, for crying out loud. They're horrible. Said the Arsenal fan.
Yeah.
And Paul's a West Ham fan, He's like, well, Arsenal's arch enemy, right? Yeah. So anyway, so tell me who I should root for and why. All right, let's talk about KERS. So MGUH does not exist, but MGUK will. So they will have a modified, much more powerful KERS. The 2026 F1 engine regulations are going to include a new override boost system that allows drivers to deploy additional power up to 355 kilometers per hour. The system adds a strategic aspect to energy deployment similar to the KERS function used in the past. The regulations aim to enhance wheel-to-wheel racing and attract more manufacturers to the grid. In addition, get this, new chassis rules will make the cars lighter, shorter, and narrower. And but wait, there's more. Now how much would you pay? They're going to make extra movable aero to reduce drag on the straights. So DRS rear wing could have DRS rear wing and other wings. Who knows?
My wing's got a wing.
Yeah, I got a wing.
Oh my goodness.
That's a nice wing you got there. Thanks, man. Is that your wing? Yes. Yes, it is.
So are we still going to go through the, don't call it push to pass business that they did last time?
Yeah, remember, I can't call it push to pass.
Because that's what IndyCar has. And it's they would explain the whole thing and you'd go, so isn't that just push to pass? No, it's totally different. Is it? I don't
And Formula One will be some cute acronym for it.
Yeah, it'll be, some, okay, push to pass. I got it. Just call it that. It's fine.
Yeah. It'll be... Oh, he's on the boost button. He's on the override boost button.
I'm just saying they can make the cars lighter, shorter, and more narrow, and somehow it'll still be Alonso's fault whenever somebody crashes behind him. It doesn't matter.
How about that?
I know.
He's brake checking over there.
I guess. Everything is Alonso's fault.
Everything's Alonso's fault.
He's like my new Chris Bangle. I just blame him for everything. Somebody cuts me off on the road. Oh, that's Alonso's fault.
Right.
Thanks.
You're like, oh my gosh, that Mercedes car looks ugly. That's Alonso's fault.
Exactly. Everything's Alonso's fault. He's the new Chris Bangle.
It's crazy. All right. And I know you guys are dying for a Williams update. Williams faced production delays leading to a spare car not being ready for the start of the season. You'll remember this, right? And that was exposed plainly and bluntly when Albon damaged his chassis in Australia. And they had to have just one car in the race. Well, Williams is confident in repairing the chassis for the upcoming race in Suzuka. So that's good news. But what about that third chassis, I hear you ask me? Well, the team is still working on the third chassis.
It's still in a box. Right. Logan, if you like a third chassis, you're going to have to start getting to work, buddy.
Give me that 916 wrench. No, it's metric. I don't know.
They shipped him straight to Japan. He went straight from Australia to Japan early because he's got a chassis to assemble.
Right. It's got oh man, this thing's got blow by. This isn't going to work.
Yep.
So anyway, the team is working on the third chassis, potentially delaying its introduction beyond China. So this leaves Williams vulnerable to a repeat of the Melbourne incident. Yep. Team principal James Vowles remains confident in having two cars ready for Suzuka, but not three. So think about that, folks. They're heading to Japan without a third chassis, and possibly after China, still no third chassis. So that is not good. I know what all of you are thinking. Yes, that's what you're thinking.
That's
or more importantly, you're thinking,
Not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, no, Logan Sargent's going to assemble that third chassis, and he's going to have a few parts left over and go, what do I do with these?
Yeah. He's like, where's this bolt go?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, guys. There's a bolt here on the floor. Where did this go?
Was I supposed to have leftover parts? I don't remember that.
Does this go in Albon's car, or is this mine, or what? I don't understand. I feel nervous.
Where does this go? I don't know.
Not good.
Yeah, get on it. I'm going to have to watch some James Vowles videos because I always love... Because he has that even engineer monotone to him that's great in these kind of situations.
He's always got that very serious,
yes.
very serious approach.
Exactly.
I love James. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking on him. James is great.
No, I just always think of him last season when they're like, okay, you're going to climb this ladder. We're going to hand you a megaphone, and you're going to make people. You're going to really rah these people at the factory, and they're going to want to work for you. And he's like, that's not really what I do. I'm not your guy for that. I'm not Zach Brown. Rah speeches, not James Vowles' skill. But that's what makes it enjoyable.
It's going to be, ladies and gentlemen, this year we're designing a car. on an Excel spreadsheet. That's what we're going to do.
That's right. Inside this folder that I just gave to everybody is the new Excel spreadsheet for 2024.
This is what it looks like, and the Excel spreadsheet should be in your inbox.
I'd like to believe that he has it like on a poster board, and he's just using a stick to point at it, like he's in Congress, right?
Like the stick with the little rubber pointer at the end, like we had in elementary school. You know,
exactly. Before the laser pointer.
Before the laser,
You know, or either that or using. You remember the like chalk where it was like 5 little chalk things in lines, so you could like make the rows.
Make the staff.
That's what he's doing. Yeah. He's just running one of those, and that's the Excel spreadsheet. You know.
Yes, that's exactly right. Just run that across there, and then he could say, okay, this is that, and then and here's a quarter note, half note, eighth note, and a dotted 16th note. Woo! We're singing.
That's right. Yes. And then Logan's going to have to go dust the erasers after class. So.
He's going to have to do this with the erasers. Take them outside, Logan.
Again, there are a lot of people right now that are like, I don't know what you're talking about, which is fine. Because they shouldn't. It was chalk dust is terrible.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. And there's a lot of those people that will never know the awesome and unique smell of a mimeograph soloist on the first day of school. The mimeograph smell, you'd get those off there and you go, smell those. There's nothing like that. It's like when they're pouring fresh asphalt. Nothing smells like that.
No, that's right.
It's awesome. So there you go. So Grace, good luck with that, Williams. So Grace, I was sitting around. I was working on putting a new neck on my shell peak Strat there. I got
nice, very nice.
Maple gold hardware. I put gold hardware on there. I'm not sure how I like it, but anyway, I was working on that, and ding! I got an alert. Yep. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. This just in. Liberty Media is buying MotoGP. Holy cow.
But not all of it. Not
all of it. But here is what we know so far.
That's right.
Liberty Media, the owner of Formula One, has acquired MotoGP in a 4.2 billion with a B euro deal, with Dorna taking, get it, 86% of the shares. The deal was delayed due to European Commission concerns, as they were gonna announce this prior to the first race of the season. They've been talking a while.
You would, right?
Yeah, you would, right? But they had to delay it. Dorna Sports generated 474.8 million euros in revenue in 2022 and refinanced its debt to 975 million euros. Liberty aims to replicate its success with F1 by expanding MotoGP's global audience and introducing changes.
No, keep out of my sport.
Yes.
My sport's fine. Go ruin your other sport.
Keep your
You're
hands
doing
off
a great job there.
Keep your bloody hands off my desert.
That's right.
Key MotoGP management is expected to remain, and I'm looking at you, Espolita, in place during the transition. The deal is set to be finalized by the end of 2024. Okay, so let me share my opinions on this.
All right.
DTS isn't something that can be replicated at scale, because that was bottled lightning with the pandemic and everybody forced to watch it. But this ultimately is a net good for MotoGP, as I tweeted today. But it will have moments of heartburn and spit ups along the way. It just will. All right. It's unavoidable, and some will be upset that more Americans are owning more European racing systems that are series, and that will tick people off.
I want to know on the heartburn scale. So is this going to cause more heartburn for people than being an Aprilia fan? Like that level of heartburn? I don't know.
Or a KTM fan.
Yeah, I mean, well, unless you're a Jack Miller fan, I think KTM's going to be doing fine. But I think that Aprilia is always like, they're great, and then they're not great. Whereas KTM kind of keeps keeps a medium place. I think you kind of expect where they're going to be. But I think that there is a lot of American ownership. And they did, so The Race did a podcast. They do a great podcast. I mean, just like they do for Formula One. And Simon broke this down. Simon Patterson broke down, because what I'd never thought about, who owns what of Dorna, and the part of the Canadian pension plan owns MotoGP. So if you're in Canada, you might actually own part of Dorna. So who knew? That's part of the funding stream for this sport. But anyway, there's a lot going on there that I should have gone back to re-listen to it, and I surely didn't, because why would I prepare for this show? But if you're interested, I could find what podcast it was that Simon really kind of breaks down how this works and what the Espeleta family owns and what was sold to Liberty Media. But they also did an interview, again, I don't remember the individual's name, but he also is an American who's now the new PR person for MotoGP.
Right.
And I thought that interview was great. And if you've noticed, one of the big things that he talked about was getting more of the content outside of the paywall onto YouTube.
Yeah.
So that if I was like, hey, Todd, you know what? You should really watch this sport. This is great. Or you should see this clip, or here's this highlight. Prior to this year, I had no way of showing it to you.
Yeah, that's right.
Short of like playing it on my TV and holding my phone up to it so you could watch it like old school, right?
Right.
Now, after a certain amount of time, it goes on to YouTube. So even like there can only be one series, which I thought was excellent and better than Drive to Survive. And I don't know why you people didn't watch it, but you should be watching it. But it was on MotoGP's streaming service for some amount of time, and then they pushed it over onto YouTube so that anybody could watch it. So I think that that's this movement toward making MotoGP less insulary and more out there for people was kind of already in the works, and trying to make it more global. And, I think that they've really been going in that direction as it is, not just trying to make it, we often talk about in the olden days, in the early 2000s, when you watched Formula One, you waited for Autosport because that was the only way you could get news. Or like I used to, because Autosport was expensive, I would just go to Barnes & Noble and like just read Autosport and Barnes & Noble when those still existed. And then you could just do it for free. But that was the only way you could get coverage or news or opinion, right? So you watched the race, but there was no opinion because it would literally just like flag dropped, and that was it. There was no conversation. There was no, breaking down of anything. There's no way to learn about the sport or like, I think the Alonso George incident is a great example. Like, if you only watch the race flag to flag, you would go, well, what's going on here? I don't know.
Yeah.
You really kind of needed some additional breakdown, unless you were an aerodynamicist, to understand why Alonso was penalized and why it was a thing, whichever side you fall on that incident. So, now however, can you look up both professional and less professional people and find all sorts of different, fan-based views or professional views to look around these different topics. And so I think you're starting to see that finally with MotoGP to be less just, I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak Italian. So my ability to gain content on that sport is always limited in the same way Formula One used to be, even though I speak English and Brits speak English. That's not the barrier. I think it's becoming less Spanish. And so it's becoming more accessible to other countries, is where this rant was going.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because it was one of my thoughts too, that MotoGP is a very Italian-Spanish centric sport. Mm-hmm. It just is. And I think that's going to be a challenge for Liberty, to sort of break that sort of grasp, to expand it. Not to discount it, because the Italians and the Spaniards love MotoGP, and you absolutely want that. And you want that to continue. But how to expand it? It's a great series with great teams, great riders. The world just needs to know more about it. Yeah. And I argue, and you've said this several times on this podcast, if you're a newer fan to F1 and you're getting bored with the domination, MotoGP is your healthy alternative, because MotoGP is constant battles and it's incredibly entertaining. And I think also, Grace, I had not watched it this year, but I think MotoGP does need to up its game in branding, brand awareness, outreach, content generation, because I think, if I'm reading right, World Superbike is killing it right now. And I haven't watched any World Superbike, but I hear it's doing incredibly well.
Yeah, World Superbike is great.
Yeah, so, they need to up their game. And I think it's being an asset under the Liberty Media. There's things they can do jointly, things they can share marketing strategy wise, demographic wise, things they can do together that might help MotoGP as well.
Or coordinate your calendars so that every weekend from March to November, I have only one race to watch.
Yeah, right.
Like, could you get it together? Because that used to be kind of the case. And it was kind of like, because both series used to have less than 40 races a season. So it was a little more like, oh, this is Formula One. Oh, this is MotoGP.
Right.
And so you could kind of enjoy them both. But now that, like, my weekends are stacked like 7 races deep, I can't. Like, I need you to spread this out. So maybe Liberty Media can figure that out. And maybe, this is, as you all know, right, I do like to watch my motorsports, the dot view, as I like to refer to it. So on F1 TV, right, like you can watch the little dots go around the track, which, especially like mid-race, it's nice to kind of watch the dots. And MotoGP, I complained about this with Formula One last year. Yeah. Finally, they're starting to get some different colored dots in the team. MotoGP, why are all your bikes red? Like, and it's not just, like, you had as many Ducatis last year as you do this year. I can't, like... The first 6 bikes all looked the same until they zoom in. I was like, oh, I don't, was that, was that Jorge? Was that Pecco? I don't know. Why are your bikes all the same color? I just want to give a shout out to Valentino Rossi for at least making his teams bright yellow.
Yeah, right.
I know where your team stands.
Yeah, right.
And so your dots stand out on the dot view, but I think maybe those are my 2 tasks for Liberty Media. Get the dots to be different colors so I can tell these bikes apart, and spread out the calendar a little bit so that I can live my life as well and not just have to watch 12 races in a weekend. But
who knows? Maybe that's where Gunther will end up over in MotoGP.
Maybe
F-bombing.
But I think there's not a problem with. I don't think it has to be all Englishified. Like, I don't think that's the problem. Like, I always enjoy after the race. I mean, it's right. They have the stew room just like they do in Formula One, but often they're usually speaking some combination of Spanish and Italian amongst each other. And so it's like, first of all, it's fun because I don't speak either of those languages, let alone some combination of those languages. And watching them, watch a wreck or whatever of the race that they didn't see, and you just watch them reacting to it. But then later they post it with the
subtitle,
closed captioning, unless Brad Binder is there, who apparently only knows English, because then they all just speak English. I was like, oh, I guess I don't have to wait for the subtitles. Brad Binder's in the stew room, and they'll just all speak English. But I don't think that's the thing. I think you just want to carry more content to more teams, and or to more countries, and make it more accessible to people, because I think the racing is there, the product is there.
Yep.
They don't need to muck with that. Just
I agree.
Fix some of these things around the edges, and I agree with the idea of bringing more stuff onto YouTube outside of the paywall so that people can enjoy this. Oh, this is my other complaint, which I brought up when I was on MotoGP's Jim's podcast, and I think that they also need to fix their Apple TV app. If you watch it over a PC, you get you can do 4 different camera angles and all this stuff. But if you watch it over Apple TV, you only get like the regular international broadcast. Fix that app. What are you doing, people? I don't understand.
Crazy.
I can watch it on my phone better than I can on my TV using Apple TV. So that's 3 things. Liberty Media, that should keep you well busy and out of my sport. Fix those things.
Fix it. Focus on that. That's exactly right.
You fixed F1 TV. Like, that was a disaster, and that works pretty well now. So, like, fix this disaster that is MotoGP streaming service, and don't muck with the sport. It's fine.
I agree. Let's see, before we move on, Frank asked, could they do F1 and MotoGP at the same place, like a support race? They can at certain tracks, Frank, but not all.
Everybody go to Portimao. I don't know why Formula One went there during the pandemic and never came back. I think everybody should race at Portimao. Right. Let's do that.
Right. Some tracks are homologated for bikes.
But you can do Silverstone does both.
Yeah, Austin does both. There's a few tracks that you could do both. Not everyone, but there are a few that they could do as a joint weekend. And I thought about that too, Frank. Would that be kind of cool to do MotoGP /F1 weekend? Might be for 1 or 2 races, but at the end of the day, they really want to capitalize on the ticket sales for both individual races.
I don't know how logistically you would do that.
I don't either. It would be difficult because, MotoGP brings a crowd, and you want that crowd there paying.
Yeah.
You don't want just Formula One crowd paying and just getting to enjoy a MotoGP. So I think it'd be better to keep them separate. But
Yeah, and something I didn't realize, well, because I've only been to COTA for a Formula One race. This is the first time we're going to go for a MotoGP race. There are grandstands that don't exist. This is what I learned from Jim, right? Like,
Right.
It's crazy to me that they're just like, those just don't exist. Like, and I'm glad that I was told that beforehand, because I could totally get there and go, wait, isn't that where we sat? Didn't Paul and I sit there, right? Like, I just think that that's kind of crazy. So there's all that kind of like weird logistical stuff, but I don't know that you'd have the like pit garage space for two series that are both important, right?
Agreed.
Who's going to take the secondary pits?
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
All right, let's do some Albons Cats, because that's kind of what we do at this time.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
Get to the show!
This is the show!
All right, Grace, you got some cats for us?
I do have some cats. I did also want to say that it's kind of weird to me that, first of all, I keep forgetting if there's another MotoGP race, and it's like, no, because I'm going to the next one. So why do I keep thinking there's another one? I mean, there was Argentina, but that's been canceled for a while. So I don't know why I keep going, do we have a race this week? No, I'll be at the next one. And that it's kind of weird, because I've gone to Formula One races, but they're usually later in the season. I've never gone to a series where, like, this early in the season, where everything is still really kind of unknown and spicy still. Like, because usually in the olden days, when they used to do the swing through North America, it was like in June. So it was a lot later in the calendar, and things are a little more settled. I feel very unsettled going into race number 3, or what might come of it, but it'll be a good time. So I do have some Albons Cats. So first, we were talking about Logan Sargent, right, having to give up his car for Alex Albon. And so when I was watching the pre-race on Formula One TV, they did an interview with our friend JPM. And so they were asking Juan Pablo Montoya, like, what do you think? I mean, because that news had just broke about Logan Sargent having to give up his car, and that everybody was like, wow, Logan was such an adult about it, and sort of like, hey, it's part of the thing. I totally get it. Alex is going to get more points. He just seemed really like nicer than any of us would have been about it. And JPM was sort of like, I don't know that I would have been that nice. That made me think, could you imagine, just for a moment, having to tell Juan Pablo Montoya that you have to give up your chassis for Ralf Schumacher? Like, could you imagine? I can't. There's no way. I would never want to deliver that information to Juan Pablo Montoya. Like,
that wouldn't be a good conversation.
You can have all the chassis, actually. I'm not here to take one away from you. I'm here to give you like 6 of them. I mean, that wouldn't have happened back then. You had T-cars. It was a totally different time. But just that conversation, I was just like, I'm glad that James had to just talk to Logan Sargent about it. Because that seemed much nicer than having to tell JPM that he doesn't have a car this weekend. Because his teammate mucked up, right? Like, it's not his fault.
Nope.
That's not a conversation I'd want to have. I also thought it was interesting, that, again, with the YouTubes, you get all these, you get more clips and stuff from people. Well, I saw a clip of a guy that just asked drivers and team principals and whatever, as they came into the paddock in the morning, random questions as opposed to, race-related questions. And so one of them, he asked Alex Albon what his perfect temperature was. And I love that Alex, after just a few moments, I thought went 18 degrees, no humidity. And I thought, he's right. That's about 65 degrees. That's lovely. It's a good answer, Alex. That is a lovely temperature. 65 degrees, no humidity. That's the dream. So I just thought, shout outs that you had an answer with very little consideration of what the perfect temperature would be. That's it.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, I thought so. Next time it's 65 degrees and no humidity. Let's just think of Alex Albon every time now.
It's his perfect temp.
Yeah, that's good. He's onto something there. I feel like I can't leave Australia without giving a continual shout out to all vibes Valtteri Bottas. Like, this guy is just now fully living his best life. And I just hope that even though we're going to move away from Australia, that we just continue to see this Bottas. Like, I love it. I love the promotions, the commercials, the drifting, all of it. The mullets. I think this is the Valtteri Bottas that Drive to Survive never showed us, right? Like, this guy, I like this guy. It's kind of like, Sebastian Vettel with the bees, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
we like this guy, right? Like so. I think more all vibes Bottas from here on out, regardless of what the
Right.
rest of his career looks like. I think this is great.
It's another Dave saving the bees. Oh, boy. All right.
Of
Yes.
which I do have one more story. Did
Yeah.
you know that they took down the bees in Japan?
Oh, that doesn't
Like they
surprise
would-
me.
They went through all that. Everybody painted the bee houses, and then they took them down.
Typical.
What the hell? Like, I was just like, why did you go through all of this work and effort? If I was a driver, I would have been mad. I put a lot of effort into painting my bee house, and then
Yeah.
you took it down?
I know. Poor
Really?
bees.
So, and then my last Albons Cats is, I'd like to give a shout out as well, not only to all vibes, Valtteri Bottas, but to the birds of Australia. Now, the birds in my backyard, if I like look at the window in the wrong way, they take off. Not in Australia. They sit in the corner and they're like, go ahead, try to hit me. Bring it. Bring it. Like big birds, little birds, those birds do not care. They're just like, yeah, I got tickets here for turn 6 and this is where we're sitting to watch this race, right? Like,
Right.
those birds did not care. And I don't understand because the birds in my backyard are like, nope, you're here, we're out. We're not sticking
Yeah.
around. Those
Yeah.
birds, cars coming at you 200 miles per hour, they don't care. They're
don't.
just sitting here.
They don't.
I paid for these seats.
That's
We're going
because
to sit here and watch it.
That's because every bird, big or small, in Australia can kill you.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And they can kill those Formula One cars.
That's
I
it.
just was
Doesn't
like,
matter.
those birds didn't even flinch. And
Bring
that
it.
car came
Bring it.
super close. I'll show you, buddy.
Yeah.
So shout out to them birds. Good job.
Good job. Let's see. Here's some no shit headlines. I like these. Number 1, Lewis Hamilton held talks with Boris Becker and Serena Williams about F1 future.
Whose? His or theirs?
His.
Presumably. Why is talking to Boris Becker and Serena Williams
Why would you go to 2 tennis players to talk about you? I don't know. So, but he did. So there's that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Lewis would look great in a cat suit. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It seems like I'm not sure I understand what that headline's about, which is why it's here. But I don't understand what that
That's why
story's
it's
about.
in here. The next headline, Ferrari told they'd made a mistake over Lewis Hamilton as Fred Vasseur faces regret.
He doesn't. Fred Vasseur faces zero regret. Zero.
Because he didn't cut the deal. It was Elkin that did that, I think.
Even so, first of all, Fred Vasseur doesn't strike me as the kind of guy
No, he's
that has
Teflon
regrets.
coated.
He's literally the guy that on his tombstone will read no regrets and actually mean it, right? Like, I think that guy that's
No
not
regrets.
how Fred rolls.
YOLO.
Yo,
Fred Vasseur. YOLO.
YOLO.
That's what it's going to say. Yeah.
Also, the least likely person to ever say YOLO, Fred Vasseur, which I love
Sorry.
this.
Yeah. YOLO.
YOLO.
I think that's a good motto for him. I like
That
it.
is great. I like
Yeah.
it. So I think that's true. That no, he has no regrets. He's fine.
Yeah. I think Gunther's will say.
Oh no, it all went wrong!
I think that's what it's going to say. Let's see. Next up, I've got Christian Horner. Yes.
Better Call Gene is what's his going to say.
Better Call Gene. Yeah. Better Call Gene.
Better Call Gene.
Yeah. Let's see. Christian Horner sex scandal will be covered on Netflix's Drive to Survive, and what Jerry's husband said to the to show chief. That's the headline.
Did she tell him to like?
No, well, it's not Christian. It's Jerry's husband said to show chief.
Oh, I see. I thought it was more just like Jerry's.
Jerry's
Because again,
Jerry's other
she's
husband.
no.
What?
I don't know. But Jerry herself is no wilting flower.
No,
so, like,
I would
think
imagine-
she would just been like, "Get off my lawn," is what she would
yeah.
say. But I guess I didn't read it as like Susie Wolf's husband, right? Like I got it now.
Yeah. I'm sure Jerry getting somebody's grill over the thing.
For sure, for sure.
And finally, Lewis Hamilton branded, quote, the best to ever hold a gun by Hollywood's go-to firearm expert. Did you see the video of him
I
shooting?
did watch the video.
And he did really well. I mean,
He did.
He did really well. But best ever to hold a gun? I mean, not Jerry Michalek, who's a multi-world champion fisher. Have you ever seen Jerry shoot?
No.
8 rounds in a second.
All right.
It's pretty impressive.
I mean, I think that reflexes plays a lot into that. So not totally surprising to me that a Formula One driver would be very good at this, and especially because it's a lot of it's a lot of eye-hand coordination, which is literally his job.
That's his job.
Like if you can grab a tennis ball really quick, you can shoot really quick. Like there's some overlap in those Venn diagrams.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, best ever is a little stretch.
I don't know.
That's being nice. Jerry is unreal to watch him shoot, but I do think all props to Lewis. I think he did a really, really good job, though. Now we need to get Pierre Gasly because he's good at catching the tennis ball.
I thought you were going to say, although that's a totally different. Like I don't know that somebody at Alpine should be that good at shooting. That just maybe.
That's bad. That's bad.
I don't know. Alpine. I bought some shoes for Austin, and they're Merrell's because I'm old because they're Merrell's, but their Alpine brand is the because they're it's like Air Jordans, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like Air Jordan 12s or Air Jordan Cherry Blossoms or whatever, right? Like they always have some other name. So yeah, they're Merrell's, but they're Alpines. I'm like, well, these will have to wear on my slow days at the track.
Are they heavy and overweight?
I know, right? Something French designed. I don't know. It's just like, oh boy. But they're really cute shoes. I'm going to keep them. But I just thought it was really funny that they're Alpine. That's not good. That's not going to be good for anybody.
So that's it. That's all I got. That's it. That's the podcast. But I hope you enjoy that. Guys, thanks for joining us live in the audience. There's some great comments. Someone said, I missed the fashion award. I do too. Just, I got so much grief about the fashion awards.
I blame Autosport.
I do too.
It's who I blame for the loss of the fashion awards because in the Michael Schumacher days, they used to really like the Thursday fashion was like chef's kiss.
I know. It was
what
so
is this?
easy.
Now it's like, and I think just to always pick Lewis is, that's what Lewis is doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Michael Schumacher wasn't doing it on purpose.
No, he wasn't.
He thought that was actually what
that was nice.
People should wear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
thought that was nice. Well, this
that's
nice.
Yeah, right. Whereas Lewis is like, no, I'm trying to be edgy and cutting edge and fashion. And, so of course his stuff, you're kind of like, I don't know, right? Because that's fashion, right? He's pushing it. But Michael Schumacher was just like, I just like looked in my closet and put this on. And you're like, whoa, Germans, what are you doing over there?
So yeah, well, anyway, I really do appreciate the audience jumping on and sharing your thoughts live. It's been great. It's hard not to laugh out loud at some of the comments that you guys post. It's pretty funny. So anyway, it's great commentary. Again, if you want to support us, you can join us live during the recordings of the podcast. Just go to theparcfermé.com on the right-hand side, and even at the bottom it says support us. Click on that. You can become a Patreon supporter. And it would be great if you would. If you like the podcast, give us a good rating at your favorite podcast player. Give us a little love over there. We'd appreciate that. Spread the wealth. Tell your friends about the podcast. Share the podcast. Share it on social media. On Facebook YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe and bell icon over there.
Ring the bell.
Hit that like, subscribe, and bell icon. Give us some love over there, folks.
I just know that's what people say. I don't really know.
Well, there's a reason for it, But anyway, so huge thank you for that. Now, next week, I will be back to review the Japanese Grand Prix in all of its glory. They are calling for rain on Sunday. Let's see what happens there. Oh. But until that time, and hopefully we can find young Paul to review that, we will be back next week to do it all over again. And until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying, so long, Grace.
See you in 2 weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.